Have you ever noticed that the hardest part of life isn't dealing with other people's betrayals? It's facing your own. Most men imagine betrayal as something external, a friend who lies, a partner who leaves, a colleague who turns. But the deeper betrayal, the one that wounds you from the inside, happens quietly and daily, every time you break an inner contract, silence a truth, or abandon yourself to please the world. Carl Jung said that what you deny controls you, and what you face transforms you. The same is true for integrity. Every self-betrayal might look small, a promise broken, a truth avoided, a moment of weakness justified, but these fragments accumulate. They form what Jung called the shadow of the persona, the moral and emotional debris we leave behind while trying to appear good, reasonable, or strong. This conversation is about that, the small betrayals of self that slowly erode your soul's respect for you. I don't say that dramatically. I say it clinically. You cannot have confidence without self-trust, and you cannot have self-trust while lying to yourself, even in subtle ways. Today, we'll explore the 3 most common ways men betray themselves every day, and how to begin returning to a life of quiet integrity. 1. What it actually is and what it isn't. Self-betrayal isn't dramatic. It rarely looks like a single act of cowardice or failure. It's the invisible drift between what you know is right and what you allow instead. It's not about being immoral, it's about being disconnected. When a man betrays himself, he feels it before he can name it. A tightening in the chest, a vague restlessness, a sense that he's performing his life instead of living it. He begins to feel like an imposter, not because he's faking success, but because he's neglecting truth. Jung wrote that the psyche always moves toward wholeness. When you ignore your own truth, the unconscious begins to revolt through dreams, anxiety, irritability, or exhaustion. These symptoms aren't random. They're your inner life trying to call you back. Now, betrayal has an adaptive function. As a boy, you learned that survival sometimes required dishonesty, not malicious dishonesty, but protective dishonesty. You learned to suppress anger to avoid punishment, to hide sadness to seem strong, to please authority to earn approval. These were intelligent adaptations to an immature world. But when you keep living by those same rules as an adult, they turn from protection into poison. There's a golden side too, the ability to adapt, to read a room, to stay diplomatic. Those are strengths. But when they come at the cost of truth, they become submission. Jung might say the virtue of empathy turns into the vice of self-erasure. Integration doesn't mean throwing away your diplomacy or calm. It means learning to pair them with truth, so your peace has a spine. Self-betrayal then isn't about failure, it's about misalignment, and every man who lives misaligned eventually pays the price in burnout, resentment, or quiet despair. 2. How it appears in ordinary life. You don't have to look far to find it. It happens in the simple moments, the ones you dismiss as harmless, but feel later as regret. The first betrayal is saying yes when your body means no. You do it at work when you take on a task that drains you because you want to seem dependable. You do it in relationships when you agree to something that crosses your boundary because you don't want to appear difficult. You do it socially when you keep showing up in circles that no longer nourish you because you fear what will happen if you stop. Every yes that contradicts your truth teaches your nervous system that your needs don't matter. Over time, that lesson becomes a lifestyle. The second betrayal is silencing your anger to preserve peace. Anger isn't the enemy, it's information. It tells you when something sacred is being violated. But many men learned early that anger destroys love, so they bury it. They smile while dying inside, mistaking politeness for strength. This doesn't make them calm, it makes them depressed, because every unspoken no turns inward. It becomes self-contempt. The man who never expresses anger will eventually drown in it. The third betrayal is pretending you don't know what you know. You sense that the relationship is wrong, but you stay. You feel that your career is killing your spirit, but you call it responsibility. You notice a pattern that keeps repeating, but you convince yourself it's coincidence. This is the betrayal of intuition, the refusal to trust your own perception. Jung said the unconscious speaks through symbols, but most men ignore those messages until their life collapses. These are the daily betrayals. They seem small, but each one says the same thing. I do not trust myself. And this is the irony. Men crave respect more than anything, but respect begins at home. If you can't keep promises to yourself, no amount of external validation will make you whole. 3. Origins and the boy who stayed. Self-betrayal always begins in boyhood. Somewhere along the line, you learned that authenticity was unsafe. Maybe your father punished emotion, so you learned to suppress it. Maybe your mother needed harmony, so you learned to people-please. Maybe your teachers rewarded compliance over curiosity, so you learned to follow rules instead of instincts. Each of those lessons formed what Jung called complexes, emotional knots that hold both pain and wisdom. The boy who learned to keep the peace also learned empathy. The boy who learned to hide strength also learned restraint. But those virtues calcify into prisons when never matured. Every man carries an inner boy who still believes, if I speak up, I'll lose love. If I stand firm, I'll be punished. If I rest, I'll fall behind. So he builds armor, achievement, politeness, rationalization. But under the armor, the boy is still there, waiting for permission to exist as he is. Reclaiming that boy isn't regression, it's integration. You don't go back to being him. You go back to get him. You tell him, you don't have to betray yourself to belong anymore. I'm here now. I can hold the line. That's the moment a man begins to heal, when he stops outsourcing his safety to the approval of others and starts providing it from within. 4. Contact without collapse. You can't correct what you refuse to confront. Contact means being honest about how you participate in your own suffering without collapsing into shame. Shame is useless here. It only repeats the old pattern of self-betrayal. What you need is curiosity, the kind that looks at your contradictions and says, of course I did that. That was the only way I knew how to survive. Contact looks like this. Catching yourself about to agree to something you don't want, pausing, and feeling the tension between your words and your truth. It's not comfortable. It's supposed to be uncomfortable. That discomfort is your integrity waking up after years of sedation. There will be days when you want to go back to sleep, to stay agreeable, to stay admired. But you'll also feel the slow corrosion that comes with living untrue. Jung said that the most terrifying thing for a man is to meet himself fully. But he also said that wholeness is impossible without that encounter. When you stop running from the truth of your own betrayals, you start building the strength to stand in reality. Reality isn't cruel, it's precise. It doesn't punish you, it simply mirrors where you've abandoned yourself. And that mirror, while brutal at first, is the beginning of freedom. 5. Containment before expression. As you begin to live in alignment, emotions will surface. Anger, grief, even contempt for how long you tolerated less than truth. The task isn't to unleash them blindly, it's to hold them consciously. Containment doesn't mean repression, it means sovereignty. Imagine a cup holding water. Without the cup, the water spills everywhere. Destructive. With the cup, it nourishes. That's what containment does for your emotional life. When you finally stop betraying yourself, you'll realize that your anger isn't wild, it's wise. Your grief isn't weakness, it's record-keeping. Your anxiety isn't random. It's a signal that you're trying to live two lives, the outer life that pleases others and the inner one that pleads for truth. Containment allows you to feel fully without collapsing. It teaches you that emotional maturity is not about feeling less. It's about feeling honestly. 6. Consequences of avoidance versus integration. The cost of avoidance is subtle but severe. Every time you betray yourself, you lose a little clarity. You start doubting your instincts, second-guessing your choices, over-explaining your decisions. You become reactive, chasing approval, over-apologizing, constantly checking how you're perceived. You look functional on the outside, but live fractured on the inside. And the greatest loss? Self-respect. Not in the moral sense, but in the energetic one. When you don't respect your own truth, your words lose weight. People sense it. You can't fake congruence. Your nervous system broadcasts it louder than your mouth ever could. But when you begin to integrate, even in small ways, your life gains coherence. You no longer need to argue your worth. Your tone changes, your boundaries sharpen, your presence steadies. You become the kind of man others trust, not because you please them, but because you're anchored. That's what integrity feels like, not purity, but alignment. 7. Archetypal framing, king, warrior, magician, lover. Each betrayal of self distorts one of the 4 archetypes within you. When you say yes out of fear, you dethrone the king, the part of you that grants order and boundaries. A weak king tries to keep peace by avoiding conflict, but a mature king understands that peace built on lies is tyranny in disguise. When you silence your anger, you wound the warrior, the part of you that protects what matters. A castrated warrior confuses politeness with morality. A mature warrior knows that clean anger is sacred. It defends life without destroying it. When you pretend not to know what you know, you exile the magician, the one who sees truth beneath appearances. Denying intuition is a form of psychic blindness. The mature magician uses awareness as power, not manipulation, but clarity. And beneath it all lies the lover, the part of you that longs to connect. When you betray yourself for approval, the lover becomes desperate, trying to earn affection through performance. But when integrated, the lover becomes generous, giving warmth without losing self. To live without betrayal is to let these 4 archetypes converse again, each balancing the other, forming a psyche that leads with truth, defends it, understands it, and loves through it. 8. Responsibility and witness. No man can reclaim integrity in isolation. Solitude is essential for clarity, but brotherhood is essential for endurance. You need men who will mirror your truth back to you when you begin to drift. Not flatterers, but witnesses. Responsibility means becoming someone your own soul can rely on. It's not grand, it's quiet. It's the kind of reliability that builds over time, keeping small promises, telling the truth when it costs you, staying steady when old habits whisper. And here's the paradox. The more you stop betraying yourself, the less you'll tolerate betrayal from others. Integrity recognizes integrity. Your standards rise naturally, not from arrogance, but from self-respect. You won't live this perfectly. You'll still catch yourself bending, pleasing, hiding. That's fine. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is reliability, to notice faster, to return sooner, to live closer to your own word. You asked how men betray themselves every day. The answer is simple: by saying yes when they mean no, by hiding anger that was meant to protect them, and by pretending not to know what they already know. These betrayals don't make you bad. They make you human. But staying in them makes you hollow. The work is not to hate yourself for your compromises. It's to outgrow the version of you that needed them. You are not here to be endlessly agreeable. You are here to be true. And truth, once embodied, restores everything betrayal stole. So begin again. Speak your no without apology. Trust what you feel even when others don't. Build a life that doesn't require lying to yourself to keep it standing. Be that man, not perfectly, reliably. Begin.